In this video, I will try to give a brief overview of national account statistics. But before we proceed, let us understand what is system of national accounts and what is national account statistics. System of national accounts consists of a broad and comprehensive statistical system which helps in systematic presentation of estimates of macroeconomic aggregates relating to national income and wealth. The framework is based on a set of internationally agreed upon concepts, definitions, classifications, and accounting rules. Estimates of macroeconomic aggregates compiled in the framework of SNA are called national account statistics. We will discuss about some of these main aggregates and also about various concepts and definitions as given in the framework. The plan of the presentation is we will first look at what an economy is constituted of, then we will discuss about the important concepts and definitions, then we will finally discuss briefly about some important macroeconomic aggregates and relationship between these aggregates. Now, what constitutes an economy? All the institutional units residing in the economic territory of a country constitute its economy. It involves three concepts: economic territory, residence, and institutional units. Economic territory is the area under the effective economic control of a single government. It is a geographic territory within which persons, goods, and capital can circulate freely. Residence, an institutional unit, is treated as a resident unit of a country if it has center of its predominant economic interest in its economic territory. A unit is said to have center of its predominant economic interest in an economic territory if it has a dwelling or a place of production activity for a long period of time. Generally, a period of more than 1 year is treated as a long period of time. Now, coming to institutional units, an institutional unit is an economic entity that is capable of owning assets, incurring liabilities, carrying out economic activities, engaging in transactions with other entities. There are two types of institutional units: persons or group of persons in the form of households, and legal and social entities whose existence is recognized by law. For example, corporations, non-profit institutions serving households, government, etc. These institutional units are classified in 5 categories called as institutional sectors. So basically, the 5 institutional sectors are non-financial corporation sector, financial corporation sector, general government, household sector, and non-profit institutions serving households. Corporation is a legal entity recognized by the laws of the nation. It is collectively owned by shareholders, and these are created to produce goods and services which may be a source of profit for their owners. Some of the unincorporated enterprises which keep a complete set of accounts are called as quasi-corporations, and such enterprises are also included in corporate sector. Corporations are further classified in 2 sectors: non-financial corporations and financial corporations. Non-financial corporations provide goods and services of non-financial nature. So any corporation providing soaps, toys, and other household appliances will be classified as a non-financial corporation. Financial corporations are mostly engaged in financial intermediation. For example, banks. Some of the institutional units in the economy may have a surplus of funds. At the same time, some of the other institutional units may require additional funds. The surplus funds can be channelized through banks, serving as financial intermediaries to meet the requirement of units having deficit of funds. Now, coming to general government sector, this sector is made up of government units which organize and finance the provision of non-market goods and services such as health, defense, police, etc. This sector has two important functions: production of non-market services and redistribution of income in the form of taxation or provisioning of social benefits, etc. Output of government services is classified as non-market production. That is, output is not sold at economically significant prices. Now moving to household sector. Household is an institutional unit composed of persons or group of persons with common arrangement for food and shelter while pooling their income to meet their day-to-day needs. This sector includes all resident household units and also all unincorporated enterprises not classified as quasi-corporations. Finally, NPISH are legal or social entities created to provide goods and services to other institutional units. They provide non-market goods and services for households' consumption. Their status does not permit them to earn profit for those who control them or finance them. For example, religious institutions like temples, churches, and mosques. Now let us see as to how we can determine whether a particular institutional unit is a resident unit or not. As we have seen, a unit to be treated as resident unit, it should have center of its predominant economic interest in its economic territory. And a unit is considered to have its center of predominant economic interest in an economic territory if it has a dwelling or a place of production activity within that territory. Therefore, individuals are considered as a resident of a particular economic territory if the residence of the household of which they form part lies in that particular economic territory. So the residence of the household is the determining criteria. For the unincorporated enterprise, if it is not a quasi-corporate, the residence of their owners is the determining criteria. For corporations and non-profit institutions, the country of registration or where they are legally constituted is the determining criteria. Branch of corporations in a different country is treated as a quasi-corporate in the host economy. Owners of the land, building and immovable structures, as also the extractors of subsoil resources, are always deemed to have a center of economic interest in the country where they are located. Now moving to concepts and definitions. As I mentioned earlier, SNA provides a framework to present estimates of various macroeconomic aggregates. Before we move further and discuss these aggregates and relation between them, let us discuss some of the concepts and definitions which are important in developing our understanding of these aggregates. Let us begin with flows and stocks. When we measure economic flow, we try to capture economic activities mostly in the form of transactions which take place during a period of time. Stocks indicate Stocks indicate the position of holdings of assets and liabilities at a point in time. These are usually recorded at the beginning and at the end of the accounting period. This has been illustrated in this diagram. So we have assets at the beginning of the accounting period, and these reflect the economic flows or the transactions which have taken place during the course of accounting period. We add the net impact of these to the stocks at the beginning to get the value of stocks at the end of accounting period. So let us say the value of stocks at the start of accounting period is 10 units, and during the accounting period, say production of 100 units, consumption of 80 units, export of 20 units, and import of 10 units have taken place. So we will add the net impact of all these to the stocks at the beginning of the accounting period to get the stocks at the end of the accounting period. So their net impact of all these is 10, and since stocks at the beginning of accounting period is also 10, so stocks at the end of accounting period have become 20. So economic flows basically reflect creation, transformation, exchange, transfer, or extinction of economic value and involve change in volume, composition, or value of institutional units, assets, and liabilities. So types of economic flows. There are two types of economic flows, transactions and other economic flows. Transactions are economic flows which involve interaction between institutional units or within institutional units operating in different capacities. Transactions are of two kinds, exchange and transfers. Now coming to exchange, in these transactions, goods and services are exchanged between institutional units or within institutional units operating in different capacities. For example, selling in market in exchange of counterpart receipt of payments. Now moving to transfers, under these transactions, one institutional unit provides goods or services to another unit without receiving anything in return as counterpart. For example, donations made by households to NPIs or income tax payment. Now moving to other economic flows. These are the economic flows other than transactions which bring about change in value of assets and liabilities. These are categorized in following two categories. The first one is changes due to change in level or structure of prices, and the second one is other changes in volume. Now coming to changes due to change in level or structure of prices, these economic flows represent change in the structure and level of prices and recorded as holding gains or losses. As such, these changes does not arise from production process but solely because of changes in prices. Now moving to other changes in volume, these pertain to increase or decrease in assets caused by discovery or loss of assets because of calamities, natural or human made, like tsunami, war, civil violence, etc. Now moving to some concepts related to production. So production is generally defined as the economic activity that creates or produces goods or services from inputs of raw materials and other intermediate products using labor and available productive resources like machinery, building, and land. Purely natural processes like unmanaged natural growth of fish stocks in international waters is not considered as production. Only the goods and services resulting from the activities falling within the production boundary of the SNA are considered to be able to generate value added and constitute production. Following are included in the production boundary. Production of all goods and services that are supplied or intended to be supplied to units. Own account production of all goods. Own account production of housing services by owner occupiers. And own account production of domestic and personal services produced by employing paid domestic staff. Production boundary excludes personal and domestic services produced and consumed within the same household, for example, cleaning or cooking, etc., by household members for their own consumption, and all unpaid voluntary services provided by the household members, for example, providing free community service. These are the exclusions. Now moving to the production taxes and subsidies. Production taxes and subsidies can be divided in two parts: product taxes and subsidies, and other taxes and subsidies on production. The product taxes and subsidies are payable or receivable by enterprises per unit of goods and services produced. For example, excise duty or sales tax. Now moving on to other taxes and subsidies on production. All other taxes or subsidies except those on products that enterprise pay for engaging in production, like taxes on land and building. The production taxes and subsidies on products bring about differences in the prices of goods and services at different stages of production, distribution, and sale. Valuation of goods and services at appropriate prices is therefore important. SNA recommends valuation at three different prices. The first one is basic prices. It is the amount receivable by producer from the purchaser for a unit of goods or services produced less any tax payable plus subsidy receivable as a consequence of its production or sale. it is important to note that it includes other taxes and subsidies on production, but excludes product taxes and subsidies. Output of products is recorded at basic prices. Now moving to producer prices, it is nothing but basic price plus product taxes net of subsidies. Finally, the purchaser's price, it is producer price plus gross trade and transport margins plus product tax less subsidies on consumers, if any. Use of product is always recorded at purchaser's price. Now moving to the concept of market production, production for own final use, and non-market production. Market producers are the establishments in large corporations and small unincorporated enterprises, most of whose products are sold in market at economically significant prices. Now moving to production for own final use. Here, output produced is meant for final use of producers themselves. Final use may include own account capital formation, for example, construction of dwelling units by households for their own use, and output retained by owners of unincorporated enterprises for final consumption, like subsistence farmers. Lastly, non-market production, production of services provided free or at prices not economically significant, for example, free government schools. So we have seen the concepts related to basic price, producer price, and purchaser's price. We have also seen the concepts related to market production, non-market production, and production for own final use. Let us now move to valuation of outputs of various types. Valuation of market output is done at prevailing market prices, that is, at the prices at which goods and services are actually sold or purchased. Valuation of non-market output is done at production cost. It is sum of intermediate consumption, compensation of employees, consumption of fixed capital, and other taxes less subsidies on production. Valuation of output for own final use is done at basic prices. Now let us move to some additional concepts. The next one is intermediate consumption. Intermediate consumption consists of the value of all goods and services consumed in the process of production. It includes rentals paid for use of fixed assets, goods and services supplied by other establishments of the same enterprise, and goods and services used as inputs into the ancillary activity. Intermediate consumption is normally valued at purchaser's price. Now moving to assets. Economic assets are a store of value over which ownership rights are enforced by institutional units and from which economic benefits can be derived by using them in production process or by holding them. For example, machinery, which can be used in the production process. Economic assets are of two types, financial assets and non-financial assets. Financial assets are those which entitles its owners to receive payments from other units in certain circumstances specified in the contract between them. For example, shares, etc. Non-financial assets are of two types, produced assets and non-produced assets. Produced assets are those non-financial assets which have come into existence as outputs from process that fall within the production boundary of the SNA. Non-produced non-financial assets are those assets which have come into existence in ways other than through process of production. They include naturally occurring assets like land, etc. Now let us move to some concepts related to income. Primary income is the income generated in the production process. This includes compensation of employees, taxes on production and imports, mixed income, and property income. We will discuss about these components. Let us start with property income. Property income is the payment for the use of financial assets and non-produced non-financial assets in the production process. Property income for use of financial assets are called investment incomes and are in the form of interest or dividends. If land is used in production process, then payment made to the owner for its use is a property income treated as rent. Rent also include payments made to owners of the subsoil assets for permitting institutional units to extract subsoil assets. Now moving to compensation of employees. This is total remuneration in cash or kind payable by employers to employees for work done by them. Compensation of employees is constituted of wages and salaries, employers' social contribution to social security, provident fund, pension fund, etc. Benefits for sickness, unemployment, etc. paid by employers directly to employees. The next one is operating surplus. This is the balance when all the costs and production taxes less subsidies are deducted from the value of goods and services produced. Thus, operating surplus includes interest payable to lenders, rent payable to owners of non-produced assets, and profits payable to shareholders. Now moving to the mixed income, there are certain unincorporated enterprises owned by households in which owners or family members work without wages and salaries. The earnings of owners are partly compensation for their labor and partly operating surplus. Earnings of owners and family members are called mixed income. It is the balance after netting out from the value of output, intermediate consumption, all production taxes less subsidies paid by enterprise, and payments made to paid employees. Now moving to expenditure side. Final consumption includes goods and services which are used by households to satisfy their individual wants and social needs. Final consumption expenditure is sum of final consumption expenditure of households, final consumption expenditure of general government, and final consumption expenditure of non-profit institutions serving household. Consumption of goods and services by corporate sector is treated as intermediate consumption. Therefore, it is not included in the final consumption expenditure. Now moving to household final consumption expenditure. All goods and services consumed by households, whether durables or non-durables, are part of final consumption with the exception of purchase for own construction or improvements of residential housing, which are treated as gross capital formation. The next one is government final consumption expenditure. Final consumption expenditure of general government is composed of non-market output other than own account capital formation, which is measured by production cost less incidental sales of government output, and expenditure on market goods and services that are supplied without transformation and free of charge to households. Now moving to final consumption expenditure of non-profit institutions. Entire non-market output of non-profit institutions constitute the final consumption expenditure of NPIs. Now moving to gross domestic capital formation. Gross domestic capital formation is equal to gross fixed capital formation plus change in inventories plus acquisition less disposal of valuables. Now moving to gross fixed capital formation, GFCF. GFCF is resident producers acquisition less disposal of produced assets that are used repeatedly for production, for example, machinery and equipment. In addition, GFCF also include additions to certain non-produced assets like major improvements of non-produced assets such as land and cost of transfer of ownership of non-produced assets. It also includes animals, plants, etc., which are used repeatedly for production. For example, milch animals in dairy farm. These are treated as additions to inventory while growing, fixed assets once production starts, and consumption of fixed capital in case of death. It excludes household durables for household own use. Basically, these should be included in household final consumption expenditure, and purchase of non-produced assets such as land. Now moving to change in inventories. So basically inventories include unsold finished products, goods for sale with traders, unused raw material, and work in progress. For example, growing crops or uncompleted structures, etc. Enterprises have a stock of these at the beginning and at the end of accounting period. And as we have discussed earlier also, difference between stocks at the end and the beginning of the accounting period is called a change in inventories. Now finally moving to valuables. Valuables are produced assets like jewelry, which are not used primarily for production or consumption, expected to appreciate or at least not to decline in real value, do not deteriorate over time under normal conditions, and are acquired and held primarily as a store of value. Now finally moving to the concept of export and imports. These are transactions between residents and non-residents of an economic territory, regardless of physical movement of goods across borders. Exports, these are the flows of goods and services from resident to non-resident units, and imports are flows of goods and services from non-resident units to resident units. Finally, we have now moved to the main identity. We already have discussed about some of the main economic aggregates in the previous slides. We will discuss about some of the macroeconomic aggregates in coming slides. These identities basically reflect the relationship between some of these main macroeconomic aggregates. The first identity is commodity balance identity. Left hand side reflects gross value of output in domestic economy at market prices, whereas the right hand side shows its usage. Most of the terms on the right hand side have already been discussed. And now let us move to production side identity. Left hand side is domestic product at market prices. GDP is the sum of GVAs of all institutional units in domestic economy. GVA is nothing but gross value of output minus intermediate consumption. So we have first two terms on the right hand side. Since we are working out GDP at market prices, we need to add net taxes. As regard addition of tax minus subsidies on imports, we will discuss about it in subsequent slides. Now let us move to the income side identity. From income side, GDP should be equal to income. Right hand side of equation 3 basically reflects the primary income generated in domestic economy. GNI is total primary income of all the residents of the economic territory. Some of the residents receive primary income from non-residents for providing factor services for carrying out production in rest of world and vice versa. Therefore, net compensation of employees from rest of world and other primary income from rest of world has been adjusted. Now gross national disposable income. GNDI reflects the purchasing power of the residents of an economy. Current transfer from rest of world, like remittances, have a bearing on disposable income. Also, from the income, taxes on income and wealth are paid to the government of the country and governments abroad. But transfer within economy, like taxes to government of the country, are cancelled out. That is why we have only net taxes on income and wealth from rest of the world. Now let us move to expenditure side identity. Right hand side primarily reflects the total expenditure by various institutional sectors on final consumption of goods and services. As we can see, imports have been deducted, but tax minus subsidies on imports have not been deducted, whereas these have been paid by institutional units while using the imported products. This is the reason as to why tax minus subsidies on imports have been added on the right hand side in production side identity. Now moving to gross savings. Gross savings of economy is defined as disposable income minus consumption. Now moving to net lending. Out of the total savings, some portion is used for capital formation, so it is deducted. Besides, as non-produced non-financial assets are not a part of gross fixed capital formation, these are also deducted. Some capital transfers like acquisition or disposal of a fixed asset from rest of world are added to the savings, as these are additional resources at the disposal of residents. This gives us this identity, the last one. Now we have summed up some of the indicators. We already have discussed these indicators. With this, we have come to an end of this video. Thank you.